What's up, my friend? Welcome back to another video. And today we're going to be taking a look at 3 free orchestral libraries that you can get started with today. Now, this is really exciting because a lot of people ask me, Chris, what are some great free orchestral libraries out there? And understandably, because not everyone has, hundreds, thousands of dollars to spend on samples. Sometimes we just want to get started with some free tools and kind of tinker in the orchestral realm. And then if we like what they offer, we can always invest later down the line. So I thought I would start with 3 orchestras here today. The first one is going to be Spitfire Symphony Orchestra Discover. Then we're going to take a look at Orchestral Tools Berlin Free Orchestra, followed by Audio Imperia's newest library called GLADE. And all 3 offer something slightly different, but they all are free orchestral libraries. And so this should be a really exciting one. Hopefully you take some mental notes, and at the end, I would love for you to let me know which one of these 3 are your favorite and which one you're going to download. Ideally all 3 just for maximum variety, plus they're all free. But anyway, you have a lot at your disposal nowadays, and I'm just showing you the tip of the iceberg here. So let's just get started. We're going to start with, again, Spitfire Symphony Orchestra Discover. And of course, if you want my full guide on sample libraries and all the recommendations that I use on a regular basis, again, I've got my sample library buyer's guide down below in the description that you can grab absolutely free. And it contains every library that I use regularly, plus the pricing, plus the utilities of how I use them and what they offer, as well as links directly to the library so you don't have to search them up yourself. It's all consolidated into this PDF guide that you can grab absolutely free as a thank you for watching this video today. So without further ado, let's jump on in. This is actually the newest kid on the block. Spitfire Symphony Orchestra Discover and the third one, Audio Imperia's GLADE, they actually came out at relatively similar timeframes, but Spitfire is slightly newer. So let's just jump into it. Essentially, as you might expect, it's a stripped down version of their Spitfire Symphony Orchestra library. So if we take a look at the folder structure, you get the mixed ensembles, which contains the all techniques patch plus woodwind ensembles separated out. And then you get solo strings, which is just solo violin performance. And then you get symphonic brass, percussion strings, and woodwinds, of course, all of which are stripped down as well. But let's just listen to the mixed ensembles all techniques patch here. And this is what it sounds like. Right, so basically it's a full sustains patch of the entire orchestra, and you also hear there's a bit of the attack of the tuned percussion there as well, which you can actually isolate here. Pretty cool. So yeah, one thing I like about this full orchestra patch, obviously it's not going to be the most fleshed out thing in the world, but you can actually play a little shorter. And again, because you get that tinkle of the percussion on the attack of the notes, there's a bit of a bite to the sustains. So if we listen one more time. And what's also really cool is you can actually hear the individual instrumentation in there. You hear the brass, of course, in the background with those higher quiver dynamics. You get the woodwinds, the breathiness there, the roundness and the warmth, and then the strings, of course, laying a nice bed throughout as well. So just a really nice curated full orchestra patch. Really just 2 different selections here, but the sustains can get you a lot of mileage when you're just trying to get some sketch ideas down very, very quickly. All right, let's move on to the woodwind ensembles, which again is included in the mixed ensembles patch here, a folder, I should say, and let's have a listen to some of these articulations. All right. So that's the longs and the shorts. And you notice that they're actually orchestrated in octaves. So that gives you a bit of that 8VA feeling without having to layer individual patches an octave apart. Of course, the downside is that you can't actually separate the octaves. So you can't have the individual voices. So they're already pre-combined for you. Now, what's interesting here, and this is the first time I've actually seen this, is that they give you a demo note of a lot of these other articulations. So basically just one note which is mapped to middle C, so you can get a sense of what the note sounds like. And if you want the full orchestral package, then you can upgrade and get, of course, the full range of those notes on offer. But let's have a listen to some of these other ones. Beast Long. Right. So it's an interesting concept, offering one note of the several articulations so you can get a sense of what they sound like. But obviously it's not very usable because it is just the one note. Now you could always just print the sample to audio and then just, shift it or transpose it up and down depending on, however many voices or notes you want. But I'm not the biggest fan of this. I would rather literally just have the longs and the shorts, knowing that if I upgrade to the library, the full library, I'm going to get all these other articulations fleshed out anyway. I guess it's a cool idea to have the demo note, but I guess at least it gives you a bit of a taste of what it sounds like. But if that's the case, I'd rather just not even have it at all, But maybe that's just a personal thing. Okay, so that's the mixed ensembles. Let's move on to the solo strings here. And they give you the solo violin performance patch, which essentially is a legato patch with spiccato or shorts at the same time. So you can play short notes as well. Right. So you can kind of play chords for the shorts just a little bit, but of course the legato functionality is going to kick in really quickly and you only hear one note at a time. One thing about these performance patches is that it comes with a legato, which is awesome. So if you do want to create some melodies, you can do that with select instrumentation in this library, which I'll show you more in just a second. The downside, though, is that they remove some of the upper range and the lower range as well. So violins normally can go down to the G below middle C, right? But that's not playable in this free version. As well as the extended upper range, you don't quite get that here in this library either. So essentially you have an octave and a half or so of playable register for the solo violin. Just so you know, right? You do get the basic articulations of the performance patch, which again is giving you a sense of what the full library can offer, which is a very cool thing. But again, you are limited in terms of the range. So that's the sort of the give and take there. But for a free library, I think it's what you have on offer is awesome. Now, speaking of the performance patches, let's keep on going here. You have all these other instruments, actually. Horn solo, horns A2, bass trombone solo, tenor trombones, trumpets, and tuba solo. Of course, you don't get the solos for all these other instrumentation, but you do get it for the horn and the tuba. For the horn, you actually get the performance patch. So this is the only legato patch for this free brass section. Yeah, really lovely. And honestly, if I had to pick legato for one of these instruments, it would have been the solo horn. So I'm really glad that that was included here. Let's have a listen to maybe a couple of these other patches. And these contain all the other techniques except for legato. And of course, you just have longs and staccatos for the range, but the other notes, you can see it says demo note there, so it only gives you the middle C example. So let's have a listen to these longs a little bit. Right. So again, just a little taster of those several articulations. And yeah, again, these patches are intended mainly for sketching purposes because without legato, it's harder to create convincing melodies. But if you want those background textures, you just want pre-orchestrated ensembles with longs, and then you can put in some of the shorts, using the staccato patch with more or less limited ranges. These free patches can definitely get the job done for you there. Let's have a quick listen here to the trumpets A2. All right. Now let's move on here to the percussion. It looks like they give you quite a few here, and you get a few drums to pick from. So. Yeah, so those are the high and the low drums. And then let's have a quick listen here to some of these other ones. We have the clock. Right. So yeah, they give you a handful of these percussion instruments, traditional ones for the orchestra, which you might expect. Same deal with the orchestral tools library, as we'll take a look at in the next example. All right, let's move on to symphonic strings. And here we have all the different sections with the regular articulations without legato. I don't see any performance patches here, so you get all the different standard ones here. Okay, let's have a listen to the cello. Right. So yeah, beautiful, really beautiful sound actually from these symphonic strings. I think they've always had just a gorgeous tone being recorded in the Air Studios Hall in London. So you know that you're going to get a really good sound from these libraries. And let's hear some of these demo notes as well. right? So we don't have to go through all of these, but quite a lot more articulations compared to the winds and brass, for example. And they actually give you some of these other standard articulations like tremolos and what else was there? Some of the other longs with a fuller range, which is cool to see. So the demo notes are for most of the articulations, but not for all of them, which is cool. Yeah, so good stuff. And the same idea with the violins, of course, right? So here you can see the tremolos get a fuller range. What else? The pizzicatos, and yeah, I guess it's the longs and the tremolos that have the fuller range, and then the spiccatos and the pizzicatos that also have the fuller range as well. All right, let's take a look here at the woodwinds now to finish, and we have a cor anglais performance patch. So we get the English horn legato, which is really cool, a really interesting choice, whereas all the other ones, you have your standard articulations. Yeah, very nice. A very connected performance, in my opinion. Now, just like compared to the regular cor anglais patch in the full Spitfire Symphony Orchestra library, this range is limited as well, so you can't go quite as high in this free patch. But again, at least you have a leading legato woodwind to play melodies with for this section. All right, let's have a quick listen to the flute. All right, very nice. And we have the bassoon. Awesome. So, yeah, essentially, Spitfire Symphony Orchestra Discover is the same as the full version. It's just stripped down quite a bit, right? You only get one mixed mic position. And I think for most cases, the tree mic is a good default because tree mics tend to be put up above the orchestra, sort of above the conductor's head. So you get a nice blend of the hall sound plus the individual players, and you hear the attacks of the instruments. The detail is usually in the sound. It's really, really beautiful. Of course, if you want to mix in more close mics, or if you want to put in more far mics, that's where the fuller library comes in for Spitfire Symphony Orchestra. But I think what you get by default is a very good option. So yeah, the things that they limit are mics. They also limit some articulations by giving you fewer ranges, like not as much of a range to play for the notes. And for a lot of the other articulations, they give you demo notes, so only single notes that you can play around with to hear what they actually sound like. Again, if you want the full thing, then you can purchase the full library. But You get all four sections. You get curated ensembles, you get staccatos, sustains. So you get pretty much everything you need to get a solid sketch up and running. Let's move on to Berlin Free Orchestra from Orchestral Tools. Let's take a look at what it comes with here. So we have the four sections: string ensemble, violins, violas, cello, basses, and you also get solo violin and solo cello and a harp. Now, in terms of legato, again, only selected few instruments actually have this. So in this case, let's see, violas don't have legatos, cello and basses don't either. So none of the sections actually have legato for the strings, but the solo strings, solo violin and solo cello, you can see actually do contain legato, and you get a harp there as well. So similar sort of workflow. You get basic sustains, you get basic shorts, spiccato in this case, and you also get some pizzicato, which is really cool to see. Let's have a listen to this string ensemble first. We'll hear the sustains here. Yeah. So yeah, that's basically what you get for most ensemble patches, longs and shorts. And of course, this is very important. Like if you had to nail down core articulations to the very, very basics, shorts and longs would be what you would want, right? Being able to play longer chords for background purposes maybe, and then for really exciting moments where you want some shorts, this is where you would get them as well. Spiccato, staccato, whatever they want to call it. Spiccato is more specific because that's a string articulation where they bounce the bow off of the string. So it has to be short by default, but you also get sort of that biting attack on the note, which is really cool to see as well. All right, let's kind of go through these other ones a little quicker. So we have violins, sustain, and this is 8 violins. Yeah, so off the bat, in terms of the quality of sound, it's beautiful. Very high fidelity. You can definitely hear the recordings ring out in the Teldec scoring stage. It's a lot brighter of a sound compared to Spitfire's library. So do keep that in mind. I do find that the Berlin series in general has a clearer tone to it. It's a little bit more on the high end side, and you don't really have to do too much EQing to get it to brighten up. It already is quite bright by default. Whereas Spitfire, it's a warmer, rounder sound. So if you do want a bit of that higher end sheen, then some EQ might help a lot there. All right, let's have a listen now to the cello. Sustains. There we go. All right, so now let's move on to the solo strings. We have solo cello and solo violin, and they give us, again, legato for both of these instruments. So here's the solo cello first, legato. Right, so not the most smooth sounding legato, let's say that. But in terms of actually creating basic melodies, the legato function allows you to do that, and you can actually hear the legato transitions between the notes. even though, you can hear the sustains are sort of being taped together. But again, for a free option, it definitely does the job that you need it to do. If you want the highest tier quality legato instruments, Orchestral Tools actually has quite a few libraries that do offer that. Berlin solo strings, the first chairs libraries, a lot of first chairs are also included in other libraries that are specialized. So Orchestral Tools does have some great solo strings as well. Here's the solo violin. Right. So I do like the violin legato a bit more than the cello. I think it's a slightly more musical and natural and realistic, and it sings a little bit better. I do think that the solo strings are a tad on the thinner side, though, so they don't have a lot of body to the sound. Whereas the violin in Discover, Spitfire's library, had a little bit more roundness and fullness to it. So it's just a personal preference, but they definitely do have that high end if you're looking for solo strings to cut through a denser mix. All right, now let's move on to the woodwinds. So similar idea, they actually give you all the core woodwinds in the orchestra, but naturally they give you just the longs and the shorts. But for a few of these instruments, they do give you legato as well, namely the clarinet and the flute. So again, choosing which ones to give you legato for, but again, you can create some cool melodies just using legato patches, right? So let's now have a listen to the woodwind ensemble first, just sustains and staccato. Let's have a listen. Really beautiful. I just love how woodwinds sound in general. Just a light, delicate sound. It's really underappreciated, I think. Okay, let's have a listen to the solo flute. And again, in addition to sustains and staccato shorts, we also get legato. So let's have a listen to this flute here. Now, in contrast to the solo strings we heard earlier, the woodwinds, the flute here, definitely does not suffer from that overly thin feel or sound. There's a lot of body and warmth in this sound, and it makes sense because I believe this flute was taken directly from Berlin woodwinds. So those woodwinds were highly, highly regarded. It really was the best woodwind library to come out at the time, in my opinion. So yeah, Berlin woodwinds still holds up today. All right, let's have a listen to the clarinet, and same idea. Wait, sorry. Let me make sure this is routed correctly. Where did the flute go? There we go. Make sure it's channel number 2. Here we go. So here's the clarinet and the legato. Now, just keep in mind that clarinets is very normal for them not to have any vibrato included in the samples, especially for more classical-oriented woodwind libraries. So that part is totally normal. That being said, this clarinet is a little bit on the flatter side for me. Like, it doesn't have as much body and warmth as some of the clarinets I hear in Berlin woodwinds. But again, I think this is also a single dynamic layer for the legato patches. To eliminate any crossfade issues, they only give you one dynamic layer, and it's usually the best solution for exposed melodies, so you don't get any of that crossfading sounding like two instruments playing at once sort of thing. So that's nice to have as well. Quick listen to the shorts. Okay, and now let's move on to the bassoon and have a listen to the sustains here. Right now, the bassoon, on the other hand, is very warm, very round, very rich. So I think it's just a certain aesthetic that appeals to everyone a little bit differently. You might like that warmer, rounder sound where you get more of that feedback from the hull, or you might like a more thinner, maybe clinical sound that's a bit more high end focused, right? So you might like that. It's a bit more processed and mixed sounding. So, you know, different EQ ranges affect people differently. That's all I'm trying to say. So that is the woodwinds. Okay, now for the brass, I believe there are no legato patches for any of these brass instruments. Let's see, tuba, yeah, all the way down, no legato here. So for all the brass, it's sustains and shorts. So just keep that in mind. But let's have a listen to the brass ensemble here. Beautiful. Quick listen here to the French horns, sustains. All right, and one more brass instrument here. Let's have a listen to the solo trumpet. All right, there we go. So now let's move on to the percussion. And here we can see we have drums, single hits. We also have unpitched metals as a separate category. And then percussion would be your traditional sort of symphonic percussion, I think. So we'll have a listen to a couple of these libraries, or sorry, these instruments here. Timpani, tubular bells, glockenspiel, vibraphone, marimba, and xylophone. These are all sort of sustains or single hits. So I think it's just one sample per instrument, but let's have a listen to these drums here. Okay, then a quick listen to the timpani. Yeah, so I believe the timpani are mapped essentially identically across these octaves. So you have the low C there, you have the low C there, low D here, low D here. And it actually makes sense if you want to play some like rolls and stuff. So like, the thing is they only give you a single dynamic layer, I believe, for the timpani, if not maybe one more, but it's harder to create realistic rolls just by using, you know, two alternating keys. And one more here, let's have a listen to the Glockenspiel. Right, really love the clarity there in the Glockenspiel. Very high, very tinkly, just beautiful. So yeah, you can see how Berlin Free Orchestra is actually quite similar to Spitfires. Essentially, it's a stripped down version of the full Berlin Orchestra. They give you specific legato patches for some instruments that they've chosen, but all in all, the articulations for the instruments are basically just sustains and staccatos. A reason why you would want to own both, though, is the contrast in workflow and the contrast in sound. Spitfires obviously is a little bit of a larger hull, so you get that more in like deep feeling from the samples. You really hear the depth of the sound in the hull, whereas I feel like Berlin's a little bit more clear. There's that that polish in the sound that you don't quite get as much from Spitfire. So if you actually wanted to layer them together, you could do that. The darker sound of Spitfire with the clearer sound of Orchestral Tools, blend them together, and you get a really nice enhanced texture of sound, the best of both worlds, essentially. Now, another new kit on the block, which is Audio Imperia's GLADE, which came out pretty recently as well. This one kind of stands out from the other two in that it is an orchestral library, but it does focus more on the sound design area as well. So this one shows up in context, just like Spitfire Discover did. So I put it up here, GLADE, as you can see. And if you look at the patch structure, we have two folders. It's GLADE Designer, which is the sound design patch with all the presets. And then you get the pyramid instruments, which you can play as regular multi-samples. But I guess the GLADE Designer really is the standout patch. So let me just play through some of these presets here. By default, it loads up with a spectacular reflection. Right, so cool. And essentially, I think what this library is doing is it's taking samples from all of these other ones and putting it into this engine and manipulating them to create these sequences, these sound design elements, whatever it is. Let's hear Fireflies here. Very nice. Let's hear a couple of these sequences, maybe gestures. Yeah. Now, one cool thing within this sequence is that you can change the rate and the amount of the feedback that you're hearing. So for example, if we trigger this amount, you can see there's less and less of that movement there in the LFO. And then you can also influence the rate of that movement. So quarters versus, half, and then even more. So let's see if we can influence that a bit more. 2/4, and then 4/4. Right, and then you can influence the type of wave that you're hearing as well. This one's moving back in the other direction. Right, so you have quite a bit of flexibility there. It's all about sound design, stuff that is not my strength, but again, if you want to create like a really cool texture or a pad to start a cue, this stuff is just brain candy for you, you know? Right, so you get some percussive rhythms in there as well. And then maybe let's hear one more of this texture. So maybe Taking Flight. Yeah. So anyway, you have different tabs here. You get the performance tab, which is what we've been looking at all along. You can influence the individual layers, play around with the different effects to create a more intimate sound or a fuller sound. And so, yeah, it's a very unique patch for these samples. All right, now moving on to the pyramid instruments. Let's have a quick listen through these. Let's start with the high strings, sustains. And so that was the modern mix. Let's have a listen to the classic mix, which should be a little bit on the darker side. Yeah, so based on what I talked about for Berlin and Spitfire, you could probably guess which mix I prefer. I personally like the classic mix a little bit more because I find the modern mix to be very well processed, but it's a little bit too much on the high end side for me. I kind of like a more well-rounded, not darker, but warmer sound overall. So I really do like the classic mix in Audio Imperia's libraries. Let's move on to the low strings here. Same idea. Very nice. Let's move on to some woodwinds here. And they don't actually tell us what the woodwinds are, but let's see if we can pick any of them out. Yeah, so to me, it sounds like a combo of the three core high woodwinds. Oboe in there, not quite playing super loudly, but you definitely get some of that nasality in there. The clarinet lending the body, and then the flute lending the breathiness, the high end part of it, the flutteriness. Kind of a unique articulation there. Tenuto note stutters. All right, now we get a bunch of percussion. So let's hear the kalimba. Not enough range there to play Shape of You in its entirety, but there you go. Okay, let's hear some atonal percussion now. So cool. So some slightly less traditional percussion, as you can see in a traditional symphonic orchestra, but they all have this sort of foresty, vibey flavor that you might get in more nature-oriented soundtracks or more ethnic things. So it's kind of cool. Now let's move on to the next one: Celesta, Crotales, and Marimba. Beautiful. Moving on to the next one, we have the duduk. Yeah, super cool that they actually give you some effects in there as well. So if you want to create even a more realistic flavor or tribal flavor, I guess you could say, you get those in there too. Now we have the Fujara. Right now, that was really cool because it actually plays sort of like a major triad as it's playing through those overblown sort of articulations there. But yeah, really, really nice. And then another woodwind here, the shakuhachi, which I believe is the Japanese woodwind. All right, now let's hear two harps. Beautiful, beautiful clarity of sound there. All right, now we have the ney. I have to admit, I actually don't know what this is, but let's see. Yeah, clearly another woodwind there. Yeah, and the staccato patch is actually quite dry there. Okay, some pan pipes. Yeah, very nice sound there. I really like the dash of reverb applied to those samples. Really makes it sound like it's sort of in a forest almost. And speaking of forest, we got some forest percussion. Love that. Yeah, this reminds me a lot of Orchestral Tools Habitat Library, which is an entire collection of like nature sounds, winds, water, all like Arctic snow, like all that stuff is so cool to see. And now a really cool little surprise is having the boy soloist patches from, let's see if I can find it here, from the Solo Boy Soloist library. As you can see, there's Peter and Benedict, and we get the legato A and U. So essentially we get the full library. Solo Boy Solo is included inside of this, this GLADE library. So let's have a listen to Peter first with his A legato, if I solo it up properly. All right. Last one here. We've got Benedict. Let's hear the legato A first. Yeah, it seems like I'm having a little bit of an issue with the U legato here, actually. Like the subsequent note is not actually triggering, but when I let go of the subsequent note, the release tail is actually triggering there. It could be just my copy. Maybe it's a bug for mine specifically, but anyway, the A works perfectly, and so does both legatos for Peter. But anyway, this is really cool to have. This library GLADE definitely is different compared to the other two, right? It's less on the traditional side, and even the traditional instruments you get, they are more focused on the foresty vibes, right? As evidenced by the name of this library, GLADE. So yeah, really, really great efforts from all three companies. And I would love to hear, based on what you've heard today in this video, which of these three is your favorite? And is the one you're the most likely to download if you don't have them already. But would you want to download all three? Because they're all actually decently small. They're all a few gigabytes large, if I'm not mistaken. So they're not going to take up that much storage on your computer. Two of them run in Contact, which is always cool anyway, because I'm a Contact guy. Berlin Free Orchestra runs in Sign, but Sign has gotten a lot better over the years, and I'm a lot more confident now using Sign anyway. So it's just nice to have that variety. So ultimately, which one is your favorite? Which one would you incorporate into your template? If you need a quick sketching tool, let me know it down in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you there. And of course, if you want to check out all of my full sample library recommendations, you want to see what I use on a regular basis, it's all included in that buyer's guide down below in the description. If you want something that's comprehensive, that contains everything you need to know about the libraries without being overwhelming, then I think the guide will really help you. And yeah, you can literally treat it as a buyer's guide. So maybe the next time you're on the market for a new library, or Black Friday has just passed, but if you are looking for something in the future, you're curious about my potential thoughts on it, it might be in that guide. So no reason not to grab it. It's completely free. And yeah, hopefully you enjoy it. And a lot of my students have found it valuable as well. So thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next video, and I will see you very soon. Take care.